Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking some time to watch this video. I hope that you'll enjoy watching it as much as I enjoy recording it. For the past 2 Sundays I have not been able to upload, and I really want to apologise for that. I spent these 2 Sundays abroad, and usually I record and both post on Sunday. But since I was abroad and I did not have all my equipment with me, I was not able to do so. So therefore we had a tiny little break in our Princess and the Goblin series. But today I want to continue reading from the book, and we're going to start reading from chapter 8. Chapter 8, The Goblins. For some time Curdie worked away briskly, throwing all the ore he had disengaged on one side behind him, to be ready for carrying out in the morning. He heard a good deal of goblin tapping, but it all sounded far away in the hill, and he paid it little heed. Towards midnight he began to feel rather hungry, so he dropped his pickaxe, got out a lump of bread, which in the morning he had laid in a damp hole in the rock, sat down on a heap of ore and ate his supper. Then he leaned back for 5 minutes' rest before beginning his work again, and laid his head against the rock. He had not kept the position for 1 minute before he heard something which made him sharpen his ears. It sounded like a voice inside the rock. After a while he heard it again. It was a goblin voice. There would be no doubt about that, and this time he could make out the words. "Hadn't we better be moving?" it said. A rougher and deeper voice replied. "There's no hurry. That wretched little mole won't be through tonight, if he ever works so hard. He's not by any means at the thinnest place." "But you still think the load has come through into our house?" said the first voice. "Yes, but a good bit farther on than he has got to yet. If he has struck a stroke more to the side just here," said the goblin, tapping the very stone, as it seemed to Curdie, against which his head lay, "he would have been through. But he's a couple of yards past it now, and if he'll follow the load it will be a week before it leads him in. You see it back there, a long way. Still, perhaps, in case of accident, it would be as well to be getting out of this. Helfer, you'll take the great chest. That's your business, you know." "Yes, Dad," said a third voice. "You must help me to get it on my back. It's awfully heavy, you know." "Well, it isn't just a bag of smoke, I admit, but you're as strong as a mountain, Helfer." "You say so, Dad. I think myself I'm all right, but I could carry 10 times as much if it wasn't for my feet." "That's your weak point, I confess, my boy." "Ain't it yours too, Father?" "Well, to be honest, it's a goblin weakness. Why they come so soft, I declare I haven't an idea. Especially when your head's so hard, you know, Father." "Yes, my boy, the goblin's glory is his head. To think how the fellows up above there have to put on helmets and things when they go fighting. Haha. Well, why don't we wear shoes like them, Father? I should like it, especially when I've got a chest on my head, like that on my head." "Well, you see, it's not the fashion. The king never wears shoes. The queen does." "Yes, but that's for distinction. The first queen, you see, the first king's wife, wore shoes, of course, because she came from upstairs. And so when she died, the next queen would not be inferior to her, as she called it, and would wear shoes too. It was all pride. She's the hardest in forbidding them to the rest of the women." "I'm sure I wouldn't wear them, no, not for that I wouldn't," said the first voice, which was evidently that of the mother of the family. "I can't think why either of them would." "Didn't I tell you the first was from upstairs?" said the other. "That was the only silly thing I ever knew His Majesty guilty of. Why would he marry an outlandish woman like that? One of our natural enemies, too. I suppose he fell in love with her. Pooh, pooh, he's just as happy with one of his own people. Did she die very soon? They didn't tease her to death, did they?" "Oh dear, no. The king worshipped her very footmarks." "What made her die, then? Didn't the heir agree with her?" "She died when the young prince was born." "How silly of her. Never do that. It must have been because she wore shoes." "I don't know that." "Why do they wear shoes up there?" "Ah, now that's a sensible question, and I will answer it. But in order to do so, I must first tell you a secret. I once saw the queen's feet." "Without her shoes?" "Yes, without her shoes. No, did you? How was it? Never you mind how it was. She didn't know I saw them. And what do you think? She had toes. Toes? What's that? You may as well ask. I should never have known it if I had not seen the Queen's feet. Just imagine. The end of her feet was split up into 5 or 6 thin pieces. Oh, horrid! How could the king have fallen in love with her? You forget that she wore shoes. That's why she wore them. That's why all the men and women too upstairs wear shoes. They can't bear the sight of their own feet without them. Ah, now I understand. If I ever wish for shoes again, Helfer, I'll hit your feet. I will. No, no, Mother, pray, don't. Then don't you. But with such a big box on my head. A horrid scream followed, which Curdie interpreted as a reply to a blow from his mother upon the feet of her eldest goblin. Well, I never knew so much before, remarked the fourth voice. Your knowledge is not universal quite yet, said the father. You were only 50 last month. Mind you see to the bed and bedding. As soon as we've finished our supper, we'll be up and going. Ha ha ha. What are you laughing at, husband? I'm laughing to think what a mess the miners will find themselves in, somewhere before this day 10 years. Why? What do you mean? Oh, nothing. Oh, yes, you do mean something. You always do mean something. It's more than you do, then, wife. That may be, but it's not more than I find out, you know. Ha ha, you're a sharp one. What a mother you've got, Helfer. Yes, father. Well, I suppose I must tell you. They're all at the palace consulting about it tonight, and as soon as we've got away from this thin place, I'm going there to read what night they fix upon. I should like to see that young ruffian there on the other side struggling in agonies of... He dropped his voice so low that Curdie could hear only a growl. The growl went on into the low bass for a good while, as inarticulate as if the goblin's tongue had been a sausage, and it was not until his wife spoke again that it rose to its former pitch. But what shall we do when we are at the palace? She asked. I will see you safe in a new house I've been digging for you for the last 2 months, Podge. You mind the table and the chairs. I commit them to your care. The table has 7 legs, each chair 3, and shall require them at your hands. After this arose a confused conversation about the various household goods and their transport, and Curdie heard nothing more that was of any importance. He now knew at least one of the reasons for the constant sound of the goblin hammers and pickaxes at night. There was an image of Curdie, and he is sitting down in a cave with his head against the cave wall, listening to the goblin conversation. They were making new houses for themselves, to which they might retreat when the miners should threaten to break into their dwellings. But he had learned 2 things of far greater importance. The things was that some grievous calamity was preparing, and almost ready to fall upon the heads of the miners. The second was the one weak point of a goblin's body. He had not known that their feet were so tender, as he had now reason to suspect. He had heard it said that they had no toes. He never had an opportunity of inspecting them closely enough, in the dusk in which they always appeared, to satisfy himself whether it was a correct report. Indeed, he had not been able to even satisfy himself as to whether they had no fingers, although that also was commonly said to be the fact. One of the miners, indeed, who had had some more schooling than the rest, was wont to argue that such much have been the primordial condition of humanity, and the education and handicraft had developed both toes and fingers, with which proposition Curdie had once heard his father sarcastically agree, alleging his support of it in the probability that baby's gloves were a traditional remnant of the old state of things, while the stockings of all ages, no regard being paid to them or the toes, pointed in the same direction. But what was of importance was the fact concerning the softness of the goblin feet, which he foresaw might be useful to all miners. What he had to do in the meantime, however, was to discover, if possible, a special evil design the goblins had now in their heads. Although they knew all the gangs and all the natural galleries with which they communicated in the mined part of the mountain, he had not the least idea where the place of the king of gnomes was. Otherwise he would have set out at once on the enterprise of discovering what the set design was. He judged, and rightly, that it must lie in a farther part of the mountain, between which and the mine there was as yet no communication. There must be one nearly completed forever, however, for it could be a thin partition which now separated them. If only you could get through in time to follow the goblins as they retreated. A few blows would doubtless be sufficient, just where his ear now lay, but if he attempted to strike there with his pickaxe, it would only hasten the departure of the family, put them on their guard, and perhaps lose their involuntary guidance. He therefore began to feel the wall with his hands, and soon found that some of the stones were loose enough to be drawn out with little noise. Laying hold of a larger one with both hands, he drew it gently out, and let it down softly. "What was that noise?" said the goblin father. Gertie blew out its light, lest it should shine through. "It must be that one miner that stayed behind the rest," said the mother. "No, he's gone a good while. I haven't heard a blow for an hour. Besides, it wasn't like that. Then I suppose it must have been a stone carried down the brook inside. Perhaps. It will have more room by and by." Gertie kept quite still. After a little while, hearing nothing but the sounds of the preparations for departure, mingled with an occasional word of direction, and anxious to know whether the removal of the stone made an opening into the goblin's house, he put his hand to feel. It went in a good way, and then came in contact with something soft. He had but a moment to feel over it. It was so quickly withdrawn. It was one of the goblin's toeless feet. The owner of it gave a cry of fright. "What's the matter, Helfer?" asked his mother. "A beast came out the wall and licked my foot." "Nonsense. There are no wild beasts in our country," said the father. "But it was, father. I felt it." "Nonsense, I say. Will you marginline your native realms and reduce them to a level with the country upstairs? That is swarming with wild beasts of every description." "But I did feel it, father." "I tell you to hold your tongue. You are no patriot." Gertie suppressed his laughter and lay still as a mouse, but no stiller, for every moment he kept nibbling away at his fingers at the edge of the hole. He was slowly making it bigger, for here the rock had been very much shattered with the blasting. It seemed to be a good many in the family, to judge from the mass of confused talk which now and then came through the hall, when all were speaking together, and just as if they had bottle brushes, each at least one, in their throats. It was not easy to make out much of what was said. At length he heard once more what the father goblin was saying. "Now then," he said, "get up your bundles on your backs. Here, Helfer, I'll help you with your chest. I wish it was my chest, father. Your turn will come in good time enough. Make haste. I must go to the meeting at the palace tonight. When that's over, we can come back and clear out the last of the things before our enemies return in the morning. Now light your torches and come along. What a distinction it is to provide our own light, instead of being dependent on a thing hung up in the air, intended no doubt to blind us when we venture out under its baleful influence. Quite glaring and vulgar, I call it, though no doubt useful to poor creatures who haven't the wit to make lights for themselves." Gertie could hardly help himself from calling through to know whether they made the fire to light their torches by, but a moment's reflection showed him that they would have said they did. Inasmuch as they stuck two stones together, the fire came. And there's a tiny picture of the fire. I'm gonna stop reading here because my neighbours are being quite loud. But I really enjoyed spending some time with you, and I hope to see you in another video over the next couple of days. And if I won't be able to upload another video, then I'll see you next Sunday. I hope that you have a very relaxing evening or night or a day if you're watching this in the morning, and I hope you're doing well. Bye.